Hello, everyone. My name is Kateřina Peková. I'm Tech Community Manager at STRV, and I would like to welcome you all here at our second online event in this year, iOS Lightning Talks Online. It's great that there's such a great show up, and I hope that we will all experience this event without any major technical issues and that you will all enjoy that. Firstly, I would just like to set some rules so you can enjoy the event as lifelike as possible. So you have many options how to interact with us or another attendees. So firstly, you can raise your hand and then we will unmute you and you can ask any speaker your question directly. Then you can post your questions in Q&A section, or you can just write down in the chat. In the chat, you have a possibility to write towards the panelists, but also towards the attendees. So choose well. Okay, so that's all from me. And now I would just give a word to Jan Kaltoun, who will do the proper introduction of all speakers. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Lightning Talks event. This time we have something special prepared for you as opposed to the usual stuff that we do. Normally, we would present 1 or 2 talks within the 1 hour that we have for this event. But today, we have gathered 8 brave humans who will give their talks today within this 1 hour. But it will be a little different because we cannot fit 8 40-minute long talks into 1 hour, right? Mathematics wouldn't like that. So instead, everyone will be presenting their lightning talk, which is a talk that must have at most 5 minutes, otherwise horrendous things will happen. More about that later. I will introduce the speakers one by one as they come to their talk. But right now, I would like to introduce my fellow iOS leads here at STRV, Mr. Jan Schwarz and Mr. Jan Pacek, who have a very special role today, right at the beginning, except, of course, for their talk that they will be presenting. First, I would like to ask Mr. Schwarz to explain the timing situation within the Lightning Talks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. For today, I am the bell of shame. And the bell of shame triggers after 5 minutes of the talk. As was mentioned, every talk can have only 5 minutes. So in the beginning or at the beginning of each talk, I will say magic words, and those will be start countdown. And this triggers my Siri shortcut. This Siri shortcut triggers a timer that is for 5 minutes. And after those 5 minutes elapse, then it triggers the bell of shame. You probably have watched the Game of Thrones, so you know what I think or what I mean. But if you don't, you will find out maybe in the first or second or third talk, whenever the speaker don't make it on a time. Anyway, that's the job of me for today. And I will strictly measure those 5 minutes for each speaker.
So this is the online version of the bell of shame. Normally, we would use the clap of shame, where if you were attending the Lightning Talks event at our office, after 5 minutes, we would all gather in passively aggressively clapping out the person that has just overcome the 5 minutes that have been allocated to their talk. But alas, we cannot do that today. So the Siri bell of shame it is. Thank you, Jan. Please be diligent in your measurements and be ruthless. Mr. Pacek, I have one special task for you because we need to introduce the first talk, and I cannot introduce that person because it just would be really weird. So can you please do
that's gonna be my pleasure to introduce you. Shall we get started?
I think we shall.
So first talk is gonna be by Honza Kaltoun, and he's gonna show us in 5 minutes how to implement Google authentication without the Google SDK.
Nice.
Honza, are you ready?
I am ready. I will now share my screen, which we will have to do approximately 8 or 9 times during this event, which will probably be quite hilarious because it will fail at least 7 times. So let me try the first one. Share desktop number 1. Amazing. And now I will awkwardly ask whether you can see my screen.
We can.
Can you? And you can see the presentation, right? Like this.
Yes, perfectly.
That's perfection. All right. Mr. Schwarz, can you please do the countdown for me?
Of course. Please start your presentation mode. So you save 2 seconds. And start countdown. And it's yours.
Excellent. So hello, everyone, again. Let's talk about Google Sign-In in 5 minutes. So Google Sign-In is exactly what it says, right? It's sign in with Google, like sign in with Apple, but well, worse. And oftentimes we need it though for our applications, for example, social or company logins. Fortunately, I guess, there's a library for Google Sign-In, and you probably don't need to develop anything, right? You just add the library to your pod file and you profit from all the hard work that has been done by all the Google engineers. And that's perfect, right? Until it breaks. And in my case, I needed Google Sign-In with Catalyst, and that is simply not supported at all. Fortunately, there's another library that we can use, and that is actually what people suggest in the GitHub issue comments. But what's the point in that? Am I supposed to drag yet another third-party library that I don't trust into my code? It has even more of its Google dependencies, and I just need sign-in, for goodness sake. So it should be simpler. And so what if I told you that you don't really need a library with multiple dependencies to do just that? Google Sign-In is OAuth, nothing more, nothing less. It's just that. The libraries are just wrappers around that OAuth. And actually, pretty much every provider, by the way, uses OAuth, for instance, Slack as well. OAuth is just a bunch of requests, and you don't really need a library to do a bunch of requests, do you? Yes, of course, there are additional features of the libraries that may mandate their use, but if you just want sign in as I wanted and get users info maybe, you may not really want the library. In iOS 12, Apple introduced authentication services. It is a framework that lets you do sign in with Apple, and we all know that. But plot twist, it also lets you perform web OAuth flows with just a few lines of code. Mind blown. Let's take a look at what the typical flow looks like. First, you initiate the AS web authentication session that does all the user-facing stuff for you. Once it's done doing its thing, you get a temporary token. Then, since the token is temporary, you make a request to exchange it for the actual access token. And that's it. That's your typical sign-in flow in a nutshell. So in my app, it looks like this. I click on a button to sign in with the Google. Authentication services ask me whether I want to log in. When I press yes, it presents a web page with the Google sign-in page. And once I select my account, I get a callback in my code. It's as simple as that. So let's look at the implementation. First, you need to create the OAuth client ID, but you would have to do that even with the library, so nothing new here. Then you conform your view control to AS Web Authentication Presentation Context Providing Protocol so that the authentication services knows where to actually present the web view from. Fun fact, on iOS, this is done modally. On macOS, this is done in a new window. Now it's time to prepare your first request, right? So this, what you see, is a request to the OAuth endpoint that handles the actual authentication. Please notice the scope parameter that defines the permissions of your future token and the redirect URI that you need to define so that the authentication services knows how to return to your application. You use this request to initialize the AS Web Authentication session that does the heavy lifting for you. And once you're done, you get an 8th callback in your authentication response. And in our case, we just use it to get the temporary token. Next, you define your Google credentials model to parse your response from the token exchange. And to exchange the temporary token for the actual token, you need to make another request, right? So this is endpoint specific, of course, in the sense that it's a little different. It's a post with a URL encoded body, different than the first one, where you just pass the regular stuff, but also the temporary code from the previous request. Then you perform the request, right? Easy, and in the response, you get the actual Google credentials and token. Lastly, if you need that, of course, you prepare a model to parse users' profile info. You can get names, emails, and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. There are more endpoints, of course, that you may call, but we just need the profile info usually. To fetch the profile info, you just make another request with a token and just decode the response. It's as simple as that, no magic here. After performing these 3 requests, you're done. So let's recap. You used authentication services to get a temporary code. You have received the temporary code and exchanged it for the actual credentials. You use the credentials to get the profile info. And now that you have both the credentials and profile info, you can finish logging in. In my case, I just pass the credentials to Firebase Authentication and it does its thing. And that's it. We implemented Google Sign-in with profile info fetching in 100 lines of code, and it could even be less, honestly. So the question is it safe to do it manually like this instead of using the Google Blast library? And the answer is yes. This is a public API documented by Google. Many apps rely on it. It will never change without versioning. So it is safe. Next time you need authentication, please think about whether you actually need a library for that. The answer may be yes, but often it may also be no. Thank you. And that's it. That's how you implement Google Sign-in. Do it yourself way.
Just on time.
Exactly. And that's how I like it. The thrill of lightning talks. All right. I hope you enjoyed hearing about Google authentication, and I hope you don't use the library unless you really, really need it next time. And I would like to continue with this beautiful pace of 5 minutes pressure by introducing our next speaker, who will be Mr. Jan Pacek, who has nicely introduced me exactly 5 minutes ago, actually. So Mr. Pacek is an iOS lead here at STRE, and he, you may not know that, is an expert on code signing. And so he has decided to prepare a talk named Codesigning 101 in 5 minutes. Mr. Pacek, please share your screen. Mr. Jan, please do the bell of shame preparations.
Now, I believe I shared my screen. Is that correct?
It is.
Awesome.
It is, even though we see a toolbar at top, but that's just fine, I believe.
You can live with that. It's fine.
All right.
Honza, can you show us how you turn on the bell of shame? I think the audience deserves to know.
I mentioned in the beginning, I have a Siri shortcut, and whenever I say start countdown, it starts the countdown.
Okay, it's more fun if you show it, but this also works.
It's Siri. We have to hear it.
You want to see me while
I want to see Siri how it fails with the voice recognition.
Actually, I changed the original codes. It was lightning talk countdown into just start countdown because lightning talk countdown failed terribly many times. Anyway, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Start countdown.
So today I want to explain something that is obvious to some of us, but very confusing to the rest of the world. And the thing is code signing. Sometimes you want to go beyond the automatic code signing checkbox, and things get a little messy. So if you want to, for example, build your apps on CI, or then you have to use manual code signing, and this can be really tricky and confusing. Plus, Xcode doesn't make it any easier with its weird error messages and complicated settings. So let's get started. Every build running on iOS had to be code signed. And for a valid code signing, you need 3 things. You need provisioning profile, which is a plist file containing all the code signing assets. You need application ID, which is a unique app identifier, and you need a certificate with a public and private key. In Xcode, there are 2 types of builds you can make. You can either make a debug or a release build. Debug builds are intended for development and for running your apps from Xcode on simulators and devices connected to the Xcode. And debug builds are signed with development certificate and cannot be uploaded to the App Store. On the other hand, release builds are signed with the distribution certificate, they are uploaded to the App Store and they cannot be installed directly from Xcode. This very obvious error message tells you that you've installed the app from Xcode on your device, but it's a release type and not the debug one. So in this presentation, you will see many more confusing error messages. So be prepared. It's a common practice to have a separate configuration file for every backend environment. So in this case, we have the development and the production configurations. With these two configurations and these and two build types, debug and release, this means for 4 code signing combinations. Notice that the debugs build are signed with the Apple development certificate and release builds are signed with the Apple distribution. This is also the first thing you should double check whenever you are having some code signing issues. Now let's talk about common issues and how to fix them. Firstly, provisioning profile ABC doesn't include signing certificate something. This is the most common error message. This either means that you have a mismatch type of the build and the certificate, so double check that in the build settings. Or it could also mean that you have a duplicate certificate in your keychain and Xcode is confused. So you should open a keychain and search for certificates with the same identifiers. Another one is no signing certificate iOS distribution found. This either means that you have not imported the signing certificate to the keychain. In that case, just double click on it. Or you have imported the signing certificate to the keychain, but Xcode didn't notice it. In that case, just restart Xcode. Or you were naive and you just downloaded the certificate from the Apple developer portal, but it doesn't include the private key. So because the key is, well, private, obviously. So you're gonna have to either ask someone to export the certificate from the keychain or from their keychain,
left.
Or you're gonna have to create a new certificate in the Apple developer portal. Next one, provisioning profile ABC doesn't include the currently selected device. This is a simple one. You have to register the device and recreate the provisioning profile. And sometimes you have to also restart Xcode. And very rarely, Xcode is still confused and you have to go to this folder and delete the old provisioning profile. Now, provisioning profile ABC doesn't match the entitlements file's value for the application identifier entitlement. Does anyone know what the hell this is? This actually means that the provisioning profile includes a different app identifier than what you set in the project settings. So you have to change your bundle ID to match the provisioning profile's application ID. Now, if you see this one, you are screwed. Thank you for your attention.
You almost made it on time.
I made it. Almost.
No, it was just on time, just 5 seconds over.
Perfect. Thank you for your attention, and I'm handing it over back to Honza.
Mr. Pacek, thank you so much for your talk. I would just like to highlight your bravery, because there is only several people in the world who are actually brave enough to ask a question during a 5-minute long lightning talk. So big kudos for that.
I didn't check if I got any answers.
I see that one person who is attending says, "Great beard, great talk," which I can definitely agree with. Now, let's take a pause from the talks, because there's a lot of fast talking, and slow down a little bit. Katka, could you please put on the first poll that we have prepared? I will play the elevator music. Don't be shy. Please vote. Three more. Two more. We're almost there. But I think that two more to go is a good score. So let's us take a look at the results. Although, Mr. Schwarz, I appreciated your dancing on the camera. That was lovely. So let's see. The question was, how do you handle code signing in your applications? And 36 or 38% of the people said automatic, which is a wise choice. 19 people are brave to do it manually. 19% of people as well use manual with faceplate match, also a very wise choice. And 13% of people use manual code signing with other code signing manager. I would like to hear about what you use, but we don't have enough time today. So maybe once we can meet in person, we can have a beer and chat about that. And 13% of people said, I still can't get it, which I believe is what majority of people in the world would say, because this is just a crazy topic. Thank you for attending this lovely poll. We now got quite enlightened. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our third speaker, who is Tina Stremenova. Tina, could you please share your screen and show your face?
Hey, everyone.
Hello. Tina is an amazing developer here at STRV. And as far as I can see back, she has been leading a quite sizable team that actually builds a cool game named Life Penalty. Now, Tina has had to onboard quite a few new teammates while leading this team. And so she decided to prepare a talk about onboarding new people to projects. So Tina, please take it away. We're excited.
Okay, so this will be really light talk compared to like difficult talks for the brain up until now.
I have to pause you a little bit because I believe that the intro also counts to the 5 minutes that Mr. Schwarz will be counting. So you actually have to wait for Mr. Schwarz to say go before you start.
I just wanted to ask, like, if this pre-intro is already part of the talk.
No.
Yes, it is.
Give me more.
All right, Tina, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, start countdown.
Okay.
And go.
Thank you. So onboarding people. So this is mainly topic for developers because and for onboarding developers, I don't know how to onboard anyone else basically, or I would say this was tested on developers. So as I was onboarding more and more people, I started to do some lists. So I would say I have some tips and tricks on how to onboard people that also I think kind of made working on the project better. So I think good onboarding comes down to a list. So the overall list is I would say 4 things. First of all, you need to give access to this new person to all the tools you're using. So on our project Life Penalty, we use a lot of tools, a lot of technologies. You need to give a lot of accesses to everywhere. And for that, I figure out with the second or third person that okay, I should have a list of all those things we use. So for example, Slack, issue tracker, Google meetings are really tricky because every day this person needs access to new meetings. So yeah, don't forget that. Then we have important links, which I will explain on next slide. But basically, those are things that will for sure come in handy for this new person on the project while they will be working on the project, basically. Next, it would be great to share the documentation if you have any, but I believe in you that you have documentation. And finally, you should explore the app with this new person, which for our project means play the game with him or her, but mainly go through the designs or basically the user journey, so they know what they are developing basically. So what are those important links, as I mentioned? So basically, those are like links to tools, resources, or mainly information that will come in really handy while this person is developing. I pointed out 3, but I think like in our project, we have like 10 or so. So first of all, environment. We have our game consists of 2 mobile apps, 2 front-end apps, back-end app, and we have 4 environments. So you need to have this written down somewhere. Also, like test accounts could be shared, like accounts to a tool that do not like carry like some private data or something like that are really handy. Like for example, we through one account download like our SDKs for the streaming service. And what came really handy is team structure, because we have around 10 developers, then 2 people for videos, 1 people for animation, another for design. And for this new person, this is very confusing. So please, I would recommend, it's really good to have like 1 page with team structure, with people names, photos, responsibilities. So this new person knows who to reach out if they have some issues or need something. Next, the documentation. If you have documentation, except just pointing out where the documentation is, I think like it's nice to explain to this person like how to go through documentation. For example, our documentation is just like diagrams. So I'd say like this person needs some context to that. Also, we have like some issue tracking guides, like for the issue states, and mainly the code documentation is important. So, and this is really important also for like all the teammates of yours that are working with you on the project, like to know, to have somewhere saved the project setup. Conventions, coding conventions are important if you have something
1 minute.
On top of classic conventions and some stuff around that, of course. And that's the end of my talk. So let's come to conclusion. Basically, it's really great to have the list of tools you can like reuse, so you do not forget to add this person somewhere. Next, a list of important information, links and stuff, ideally in 1 document. This is great for the whole team. And finally, as I already mentioned, have everything in 1 place. Like for example, we use Jira, so we have everything in Jira pages. If you use something else, like try to have everything in 1 place or 1 document that everyone can find it. And that's it. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for such a nice talk, Dina. I wish onboarding on projects would be as easy always as when you are leading the project. I also must say that I really appreciated all the cat pictures and the GIFs. Lovely, especially the cat just jumping into the red thingy was lovely.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. And without further ado, I would like to invite our next speaker, Marek Slavik, who is known for one thing, especially at STRB, and actually in the world. He is known as a person, or as the person, who builds UI collection views using the composition layout, literally the fastest on this planet. So, Marku, could you please tell us how the hell do you do that and share your screen? Also, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think it's solved now, and you can see me, and you can also see my screen.
Indeed, we can.
So, hi guys. Without further ado, I would like to share with you some development tips and tricks.
Is this already part of your talk?
I really love that you tried to circumvent Mr. Schwarz, but it is forbidden.
What is happening today? Like everyone tries to start without my countdown. Anyway, Marco, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Start countdown. Go.
So, development tips and tricks. No backend, no problem. I think that everyone knows that problem, right? we should build some nice app, and we have no backend. So what can we do? To be honest, we can do a lot. We can start building a nice UI with an emphasis on layer separation. And we can just later map all the backend models to our local models or view models and to connect all the dots. And in this place, you should not worry so much about the details, and you should just keep creating small components and think about the reusability and how you will connect all later on. So that's first tip. The second tip is consistency boosting protocols. What is it? AKA how not to think about consistency too much and achieve it anyway. So I think that even small namespacing differences make you think too much when you are working in teams. So don't worry to create some kind of constraint or boundary. And it makes your life easier, and you will save quite a lot of time. And it's really good if you suffer from some kind of OCD because you always know where you should go to find the specific setup. For example, in this specific case, you have some protocol view setup table, which is used only for setting the UI. And later you can use some model and you will configure that component. So that's it. Another one is composition layout and diffable data sources. I think that it's the best way how to create a complex layout and to keep everything as simple as possible at the same time. So if you can use iOS 13 only, you should definitely go to start using it because it's super readable and clear. It's really easy to make custom iPad UI because you need to do it in only one closure. And code reviews are much easier because you don't need to work so much with storyboards. And I think that's a really big advantage. Another one, coordinators. So I would like to share with you the idea how to keep coordinators more separated from view controllers. And it's this specific case. We have some protocol event emitting, which has associated type event. It's basically some with all the possible events, as you can see in the function make initial. So basically you have some case login or sign up, and the view control itself only emits the values. This specific case is made with Combine, which is the reactive framework from Apple, as we can know. And this can be also done by delegates. And basically, you need to make sure that you handle all the cases in the coordinators. And it's really good for reusing the components in various flows because all the time you have the problem that coordinator is some different type that you can pass. So this solves the problem of this complexity. And at the end, I would like to share one thought with you, and it's from one Medium article I really like, and it's thinking around the system that is consistent becomes a matter of intuition instead of pre-knowledge, leading to much more rapid and smoother development. And I think that's something we should all strive to achieve. Thank you. I think I made it on time and questions.
It was
Thank you, Marek.
perfectly on time. I didn't announce the 1 minute till the end because you announced the ends even before 1 minute till the end. So I just stayed silent.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your talk. I wish we could hear all your secrets, but at least a few we'll have to do for today because we only had 5 minutes. I especially particularly like the quote that you put on the last slide, as I really honestly believe that if a system is designed well, intuition is the best way of navigation. But let's not be philosophical And let's put on our second quote out of the 42 quotes that we have prepared. And that one is about UI collection views. So please, Katka, put it on, and I will put some music so that it is easier to answer. So how do you handle UI collection view updates? Let's give it 5 more seconds of this beautiful musical piece. It will become classical music very soon, I'm sure. I think that people are actually voting faster this time because they want to stop listening to this. All right. Most of the votes are in, so let's recap. So the question was, how do you handle UI collection view updates? And the first option was diffable data sources and composition layout, and 19% of the people use that. And I can understand this lowish number because, you know, it's only iOS 13 and above. But if you haven't tried it, please do try it. It's just way, way better. Then the second option was RX data sources, and that's 13% of people. Nice, if you use RX Swift. And then 13% of brave people do it manually in perform batch updates, which I think requires really, really nerves of steel. And 56% of the people chose the way I choose personally, because I think it's the best. And we basically just close the eyes and real data and just hope that stuff happens, right? That's the proper way of doing it, I believe. Thank you everyone for the replies. I think that we learned something, and let's not spend enough more time by listening to myself talk, but let's spend the time by listening to someone else, and that someone will be Mr. Schwarz, who is my fellow iOS lead here at STRV of the iOS department. But I wanted to mention that he has prepared a talk which has a title long enough to fill in the 5 minutes on its own. So I hope that you will not start with it. The title is Everything You Always Wanted to Know About App Store Review Guidelines, but Were Afraid to Ask. So please, Jan, bell of shame yourself and take it away.
Come on, that was a spoiler that you read the title instead of me. But I will read it anyway in the beginning, so.
No, it's so long that no one remembers it.
So I will share my screen and start a countdown for myself. Do you see my screen?
It's a lovely screen, we do.
All right, so start countdown. Cool, and I can start. So everything you always wanted to know about App Store review guidelines, but you were afraid to ask. I already spent 5 seconds on this, and I have 25 slides, so let's dive into it. Well, you may be thinking that you know just enough, but I will try to convince you that you should try to know more and you should try to care more. First, why care more? Well, Apple says that they reject millions and millions of binaries every year. And if you are lucky, you get rejected just on metadata. So you fix your description or upload a new screen, like new screen, new image of your device, and you are just fine. But if you are unlucky, then you can end up like Epic Games, because Epic Games tried to avoid the 30% cut from in-app purchases and they got banned from the App Store. So if this happens to you, then the client approaches you and asks, why didn't you tell me? And you are like, I didn't know. And the client goes like, you are fired and I want my money back. So this is the real reason why you should care of App Store review guidelines. And the next time you notice something suspicious, you raise a flag. And if the client decides to proceed, you can say, okay. And if there is the issue that your binary gets rejected, you can say, And like the client approaches you and then asks, why didn't you tell me? You can say, I told you so. So that's the reason, and like you should really care about App Store review guidelines. Now let's dive into why you should care more about the guidelines themselves. The guidelines are split into 5 sections, so let's go section by section and then choose like a couple of rules from each section. First, safety. Apps that enable anonymous or prank phone calls or SMS, MMS messaging will be rejected. This is kind of obvious, but just be aware that App Store is not mean apps friendly. Apps in the kids category should not include third-party analytics or third-party advertising. Every app has analytics, and if your app for kids is just ready for submission and it gets rejected on this, well, it's not the perfect time to find out, right? Next section, performance. I suggest you should buy a stopwatch because video streaming content over a serial network longer than 10 minutes must use HTTP live streaming. Unless your app goes into the age category 17+, you shouldn't rely on facial recognition because apps using facial recognition for account authentication must use an alternate authentication method for users under 13 years old. Next section, business. Very important. Clients want to earn money and they want to avoid the share with the Apple. But sometimes you can make them happy because if your app enables the purchase of real-time person-to-person experiences between 2 individuals, you may use purchase methods other than in-app purchase. If you are asked to implement advertising, well, display advertising should be limited to your main app executable. You should not be included, or it should not be included in extensions, app clips, widgets, and notifications. Next section, design. Apple emoji may not be used on other platforms or embedded directly in your app binary. So if your designer gets excited about Apple emojis, be aware of this. Alternate app icons may not be used for dynamic, automatic, or serial changes. Well, if your client asks you if it is possible to have a dynamic app icon, the answer is yes, but it is not allowed. Last but not least, legal. If your app doesn't include significant account-based features, let people use it without login. This was the case of my first app in STRV. So be aware that even though like every app want to have login, sometimes it's counterproductive. And icing on the cake, location-based APIs shouldn't be used to provide emergency services, so do not even think of helping injured people. So now you may think like, oh my God, so many details. What should I do? Can't Apple provide me with something like more usable, some rule of thumb? Of course they can. We will reject apps for any content or behavior that we believe is over the line. What line, you ask? Well, as Supreme Court Justice once said, I'll know when I see it. And we think that you will also know it when you cross it. So get on the web, and once you cross the 10th minute on video streaming, you will just know. Just kidding. Yeah, let's be serious. So what are some key takeaways from this? App Store review guidelines are very important for us, but they are pretty comprehensive and sometimes very detailed. So what I suggest is go through them at least once from top to bottom so that you get the proper overview. And then whenever you smell something fishy, work on an app or from the exposed business field or implement payments, or you are just not 100% sure, then go to the guidelines, check them in detail. And last but not least, raise a flag rather sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwarz. Now, the thing is, we cannot know whether you switched off your Siri notification or you just made it on time, but we'll just choose to believe that you made it on time.
Now it's shaming. Now it's shaming. So I made it on time.
Well done. Well done. Well, that was a lot of words. I think that you should consider a rapper career, maybe a side gig to your iOS lead career. I think you'd be really good. But I have one question to your talk. Who the hell is Paul F. Tompkins? The guy who wrote the book that was like twice on your slides.
I have no idea. I just used the quote.
Okay, it's a nice quote though. Thank you so much for your talk. It was very enlightening, and I hope that everyone will now know how to avoid being rejected from the App Store.
Hopefully.
Now,
Thank you.
I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Tomas Cejka, or as we call him, CJ, who is such a good developer that he became bored of just developing software, just of building applications, and he decided to build houses as well. So CJ, can you please tell us about your experience with those two things?
Hi guys, can you hear me properly? And can you see my presentation?
Everything is
indeed.
proper.
Cool. Yeah, so I can.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm sorry about the lightning cutting my face into the half. I'm trying to move somehow, but probably I will be like two faces, so it's okay.
It's a nice effect.
Yeah.
So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. CJ, are you ready?
Give me a second. I'm ready, yeah.
All right. Start countdown. Go.
Okay, guys. So hi, welcome to the lightest talk tonight. As I said, I'm CJ, and I've been a software developer for more than 14 years. And since my studies, I've heard many times that building a software is similar to building a house. Fortunately, I started to build a house like a year and a half ago, and I realized that it would be nice to compare a bit of engineering from software development to civil engineering, especially the practical house construction. So how we go? First, before we start any type of project, we have some kind of documentation. Fact is that both of them are really easy to read. Some of them are quite hard to get. And especially for houses, we have a building authority, which it's necessary to pass validation about your project. And believe me, I worked as a software developer on projects that I would be really happy if there is some independent authority that would validate the documentation. Then we have some kind of tools. Probably we are all using some versioning control system, which is a perfect tool that give us ability to return back whenever we need. But on house construction, we also have some typical different kind of tools, especially the bigger are more expensive. And the main difference is that there are tools for two person. And the fact is that when you have two persons on one tool, you are building the trust between those two people, which is very good when you have the trustness in your team. By the way, can you imagine console for two pairs of hands and you need to write a command together at one time? Well, then you need some team to build a product. And we all know that super motivated developers are quite to get nowadays. So we are all spammed on LinkedIn by HRs. On the other side, when you are inviting your friends to help you with your house, and even the weather is bad and it's raining and cold, the share on discomfort makes really strong relationship. And actually, that's the reason why all companies are right now working with refill programs, because whenever you have a friend with a strong relationship, you believe him and you can work with him easier. Then we have 90 to 90 rule, which means that 90% of code will take you like 90% of development, and the rest 10% will take another 90% of development. Believe me that on house construction, this rule is like 99.9, because the raw building and everything around is super fast. But then the details and the finishing all, internal walls and all plasterings and everything will take you like more time than the raw building itself. Fuck up. As I said, we are all using some versioning control system, which allows us to return back in time, and we are not stressed. And I would say that we are also less responsible what we are doing, because if you imagine that you fuck up something on the building, especially like the waterproofing or the necessary wall, which is necessary for static of the house, and you need to fix it, actually you need to get back to the initial state, which means to remove the wrongly built wall. Then you throw away all material and you start again. So it takes you a lot of time and a lot of money. And that's the reason why people building a house is quite responsible comparing to the developers, I would say. And also, I would say that we have MVP when talking about housing, because a real example from my street is that many people move to new houses, even without having a stairs to the house. So MVP works everywhere. What I've learned as an engineer, it's nice when I was able to move at least to have temporary office in my new house, and I learned how to work with time properly, because the second two images are actually our All Hands from last week, company All Hands. And during the passive listening of our CEO, I was able to finish the plastering of the toilet construction. And what is the point? Actually, touching the real world is still not, or there are lack of software products, especially for house constructions. And you can see on the left image that one Czech producer of bricks, they are starting their own VR learning software. And that one guy is starting that CMS for house construction company. And I would say that if you want to run a startup, forget digital products and try to focus real world and try to help people who works manually. The money are there. Thank you.
That was perfect timing, CJ. Absolutely perfect. Thank you for the lovely talk. I now have the urge to build a house just to build friendships. And I also really reiterated why I haven't become a surgeon, because the lack of undo is really distressing to me. So kudos to building the house.
Yeah, luckily I had to do it just once, and that was the example. So
well, it's quality work then in that case. Good job. I hope you can, on the next event, you can show us a picture of the finished house.
Oh, we will see.
All right. I have one more poll prepared that is a little bit about this topic. Could you please put it on, Katka? I will play some music as always. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? The typical HR question. A few more to go, but I'm gonna artificially prolong it so that we can get to the chorus. And people like the song this time though. They're not voting as fast as the last time. All right, I think that we're done. So the question was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And 33% of the people, which is a good score, still want to be building iOS apps, while 1% wants to keep building software, but for a different platform, which is all right. Just please don't forget about iOS. That would be sad. But 50% of the people want to build their own business, which is something really quite brave. And I wish you all the luck in the world. I hope it works out for you. 2 people want to build a house. And that is, I think, even braver, as CJ could say. So I wish you the best of luck as well. Thank you for participating in this poll. And I have last 2 talks to present today. The next talk will be presented by a guy who just likes to play with the latest and greatest stuff, but he doesn't like to play with it in an easy way. He just wants to solve the hard problems straight away. So you could see him presenting about SwiftUI animations when animations were really quite unexplored in SwiftUI. And now he wants to tell us about Combine and uploading. So Gleb, could you please share your screen and tell us?
Hey everyone. All right, so Honza, shall I start?
I'm ready as always. Just tell me when you are. So are you ready? Can I start the countdown?
Yep.
Start countdown.
Right, so basically I came up with this topic because, you know, how to upload using Progress and using Combine. There was not much info about this, and I decided to try to investigate this, and this was my journey. So basically, I had this expectation that, there's this super cool like data task publisher, which is you can connect it to any combine events, and Apple done such a great job on this. And I was like, oh my God, I will try just doing the same thing with the upload task publisher, and my work will be done. And then I met this harsh reality of nothingness. There is no upload publisher, there is no download publisher, and it's basically sadness. Thank you. All right, that would be too lame. So I've prepared a small demo for you, and this is what I have come up with. It's not like some ultimate solution or something, but let me show you the app. So basically, it's a super simple app. You can see like one screen, and there are two ways how to trigger uploads. It was too fast. So they both do the same thing, but slightly differently. And the internet is too fast, so we can't see the progress. But maybe if we, right now we can see it. So let's just jump straight into the code. And so this is just a simple button, and I have this API manager. And here we can see that we can use upload task from the URL session, and we can connect it to some combine element like a future or a pass-through subject. And this gives us the response from the uploading. But also we need to tackle progress somehow. And the progress is tackled by this delegate. And what you can do is you can actually combine those two publishers like this and subscribe to them individually, and observe the progress in this one and observe the the response in this one. But I was thinking if this can be united somehow, and you can do it. So you can make something like a result type, sort of, but like very similar, and basically merge those two publishers together. And they will provide both a progress and the result of that upload. And then what you can do in your UI code, you can just observe those changes and react on them individually. And here's how you do it. Use combine and using progress. By the way, downloading is much trickier. Maybe it's a topic for another talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gleb. Another level of bravery in Lightning Talks is showing code. So I really appreciate that you've done that. And thank you for enlightening us about Combine. For many, it is still an unexplored topic. And as you can see, if you dedicate yourself, you can actually build pretty much everything in it. So please, if you have never tried Combine yet, just try it. You'll see that it's lovely and pretty much as good as RxSwift. So thank you, Gleb. Thank you so much. And with that, I have only one last talk today that I would like to present. And it will be about custom loading indicators, because the standard loading indicators are just horrendously boring. And so Sevcik decided to build a custom fancy uber cool one. Petr, can you please tell us about how to do that? Also, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry about that. One more time.
No worries.
Okay. Okay, so I'd like to tell you today about how we can...
Stop, Petr, stop.
You know the rules.
Sorry.
So are you ready? Can I start the countdown?
Yeah.
All right. Start countdown.
Okay. Hi, today I like to talk to you about how we can draw and animate a custom loading indicator in Swift. So this is something that we're going to do. What you need to know, in UI view, there's a property called layer, which is an object of type CA layer, which is responsible for all the rendering and animation inside your view. It is a common practice when creating views with custom draw content to actually work with this layer directly and to build the content by adding additional sub-layers, the child classes of CA layer to this layer. So that's what you're going to do. Strategy. First, we need a static drawing of this loading indicator, and we're going to do that by first creating gradient with the use of CA gradient layer. We're going to configure it to look like this. Then we're going to use shape. With the use of CA shape layer, we can create a circle without fill, so it's kind of a donut. And finally, we will mask the gradient with the shape, which creates the loading indicator. So I will create a custom loading indicator view class, which is a view where all the magic will happen, not much in it so far. And I will start adding my sublayers. So general approach for this is always configure sublayer, then add it to layout as a part of init. We need to do this only once. And finally, manage size and position. And this can get tricky because we cannot really use auto layout as when working with UI views. So instead, it is a common practice to work with bounds and positions directly. And a great place to do this is layout subviews method of UI view. So first, I'm going to add my CA gradient layer. I'll just initialize it and I'll set some colors. I need a color clear and red, which will by default result into this. And I will configure it. I will change a type, start point, end point, location. So I get something like this. Then step 2, I will add it to layout. So from my init method, I will call setup layout method, in which I'm adding a gradient layer as a sublayer to my layer. And finally, I manage size and position. So in layout subviews, I'm setting the frame of the gradient layer to the bounds of my view. So that's gradient layer. Now the shape. So the same way, I'm gonna initialize CA shape layer. I'm setting some properties, fill color, stroke color, line width. And fill color here needs to be clear because we want the donut, right? We want a circle with nothing in it. And similarly as before, I'm gonna add it to layout as a part of init. I'll add it as a sublayer to my layer. And then I will manage size and position. I will set the frame of the shape layer to the bounds of my view. So just to recap, this is my class. Here are my configured sublayers. Here I am adding them to layout, and here I am managing size and position, which results into this. Now, we don't really see any shape because we need to define the shape by populating the path property on the CA shape layer. And this property accepts a core graphic representation of UI Bezier path, which is like a drawing instructions for your shape. And we need the drawing instructions for circle. And luckily, UI Bezier path gives us a little constructor just for that. So I will create a little method, make path, from which I'm going to return UI Bezier path for circle. I need to figure set some stuff. So I will start from a point somewhere in time and space, and I'll need to set up starting angle, which will be at 3 o'clock, here 0. Then I will set also radius to be a constant of 100 and end angle to be start angle minus 360 degrees anti-clockwise. So that's my method which returns CG path. Now in layout subviews, I will populate the path property of shape layer with
1 minute.
Path. Yes. Okay, so now for the masking. In order to mask it, I need to first add my shape layer to layout, not as a sublayer, but as a mask to the gradient layer property. And then I need to actually set the center of my circle not to be the center of view, but the center of gradient layer, which result into this. Finally, the animation. So right after I initialize my view, I'm going to initialize also trigger CA basic animation in 3 steps. I'll create animation object. I will configure some properties, and I will add it to my layer, which instantly triggers the animation. So in init, I'll call animate, and in here, I will trigger animation, which will result into this. Thank you.
Wow, you make it look so simple. Well done. I really like that you covered masking because this has been a very popular topic in 2020 and continues to be quite popular in 2021 as well. But bad jokes aside, we had Peter presenting on an iOS meeting about this, but going much more in depth, and it's some crazy stuff. So if you'd like to see that, please write us in the chat here, and Peter will probably, or maybe, tell us a bit more about it in a different talk. All right. Well, that was the last talk today. Thank you, everyone, for presenting. It was a blast. I really enjoyed all these tasks, and I hope that our audience did too. And I want to ask you, using a poll, one last question. Katka, could you please put it on? And I will not be playing any silly music. And we just want to hear from you the feedback to this style of event. Do you like this format of lightning talks, or would you more prefer the typical one where we just present one or two longish talks? Let's give it a few more seconds. Well, music, it's never gonna give you up. Probably not gonna sing. That's a bad idea. Okay, the votes are coming in, and I can see that it goes in a quite clear trend, and so I can see that quite a few people enjoy this type of event. So we may do more in the future, hopefully in person, of course. Like in person, everything is better in person, but we'll see how the situation unveils in the coming months. But if not greatly, we can do another online one. One person did not enjoy this event as far as the format is concerned, and I'm super sorry. We'll try to make it better for you next time. Please write us in a feedback form at the end. And some people just don't care about the format of the event, which I can get behind because I like both as well. So thank you so much for giving us the feedback. There will be, I believe, another feedback form right at the end, but Katka will tell you more about it. Again, thank you to all the speakers. You're brave and you did a great job today. And thank you for all the attendees for bearing with us for so long and listening to our talks. And have a great evening.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there are no questions, so we can just finish this event. Thanks to all our speakers. Thanks to Honza for a great MC of this dynamic event. It was really great. So the next iOS event is planned on for 25th of February. It will be with Honza Kaltoun. So you are all invited there as well. You can register yourself on the Eventbrite site or check out our events section on strv.com. So that's it from us for today, and hope you all enjoyed it and have a nice evening. Also about the feedback form, sorry, I forgot that. I'm posting it into the chat right now, and you should be able to see it once you close the Zoom window, and we would really appreciate it. So thank you once again and enjoy the evening.
Thank you guys and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you everyone. Bye.
Good evening. Bye.
Bye.